And you too. It's just been one of those weeks where you think you're on top of something and something else happens. But we manage. There's only a few here today, but we're all meant to be here. And to those of you on Zoom, welcome along. Today's talk is demonstrating our divinity. What do I mean by divinity? Well, the I am presence, I could put it in lofty terms, the Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, Krishna consciousness. H. Emily Cady writes in Lessons of Truth that we have a human self and a divine self. Our human self we're all too well aware of, our personality, our opinions, likes and dislikes, made up from the society we were brought up in. And my goodness, haven't we got some stuff in there that we sometimes don't even realise till we're triggered? Little things. You know, we meet people and say, oh, I don't like that hat. Inwardly, you know, little tiny things. Where is that coming from? I really couldn't care less about the hat. And all these sort of things. You know, you just go on and on and on. And I remember starting school, in primary school, and we were taught certain things about Australia when we learnt all about the British Empire, and all through primary school and high school we learnt about the British Empire. I could have told you all the countries in India and the Khyber Pass. We were even shown a statue of Queen Victoria, that pompous statue there. And you think, well, yeah, the British Empire. Mind you, it's turned out well, it's a Commonwealth, and we see how divine order uses whatever it can to bring people together. Now we have our divine self, which is our real self, an individualised expression of God, our Christ nature. Those of you who are brought up with the Bible know that John the Baptist represents the personality, our intellectual understanding. That was the first one of Jesus' initiations. And the second one, Jesus, who went even further, represents our divine self, our unchanging spiritual nature. And in John 3:10, he must increase, but I must decrease. Or our divine nature must increase, our human self must decrease. And all forms of physical change in this universe, but the underlying is this rock of Christ. And we use this because I was culturally brought up as a Christian, and if I was brought up in, say, India or somewhere else, I'd be brought up in that particular culture. But the law is the same. Now, I was wondering which way to go with this talk today, so I'm going to just move over here. A couple of things. Now, God made us the perfect seed. Then let it work out for itself. And we've heard of the parable of the sower where, okay, the farmer's out scattering the seed, some fall on good soil, some thrown on the rocks, the road, the birds eat them, and the weeds. And that's what we're like in life. The ups and downs, blessings and challenges. And I just think how fortunate we are to actually be here still standing sometimes when you think of some of the things we've been through and the dear old assaults on our country and the universe. But we're here. We can't be divine unless we already are. So it's the seed in us that we grow. So what is divinity? Well, I could say a few things. I'd just say it's conscious awareness of who we already are. Now that's not making it simplistic. And what can it do for us? Well, it helps us with the ups and downs of life, the blessings and challenges, and there are many that we come through as we are here right now. We've survived up until now. How much does it cost? Discipline. That word again, we hear it in so many things. But that means you've come here, I've come here, and we've all had teachings in the past. But to put them into practice is another thing. It's cold today, so no one wanted to get out of bed. And I'm in the country sometimes, and I'm there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I hear the first magpie, which is so beautiful. I'm nice and warm, and it's freezing outside, it really is. And I think, I'll just stay here for another hour. Then another hour goes past, and I've got a little thing on my phone that goes ping. And there's a chap that used to come here. They had a group called the Oneness Blessing. The hall was full, but that was before lockdown. And I'm hoping him and Janine, his partner, will be here again for us to give us a talk on all that stuff and the journey they had. A little saying comes up on my phone. He's been doing this since lockdown. And what's today's? Self-definition is a conceptual trap. The more we insist on a fixed self-image, the farther we drift from our unnameable essence. Return to the nameless, the formless Tao. Drop the self you think you are, and what you truly are cannot help but rise. It's very lofty though, that stuff, for anyone that's new. I get it, but I tell you what, some of the sayings will come up, like the Taoists say, look, you travel the world, but you find yourself go back to where you start from, because that's where you are. Little things like that take a while for people to work out. But discipline. What we have here is we have affirmations and denials, we have meditation and prayer, and there are steps to these which we've taught over the years, and hopefully we can bring those back to more and more people. So where do we get divinity? It's already here. It's inside us. Inside our body temple, and it is. Isn't it an amazing temple? I just think to myself, well, here I am, I'm standing up here, nearly 80 years of age. I don't feel it, but the body does. But that doesn't matter, that's part of the journey. So as I'm going through life now, I see it from a slightly different perspective. First of all, and I had it written here, I just wanted to make sure I get this right somewhere. The parts to our journey are we're a physical body. We were born, and when we start, we have things that we need to do. We don't even think about things. Then at middle age comes, different perspective again, and then once you get to my age, over the 70s, if not before, another lot of observations come in. I could call it, what would I say, conscious awareness, enlightenment. We hear that word enlightenment spread around. And we think angels, there we are, that's in our culture, a beautiful little angel. They're all flying, and it's going to be ecstatic. Well, I'm glad we didn't know before we started this journey how it can be. It's got its blessings. I would rather know certain things than not know at this point in time. And when we look back and think of some of the things that we did, we're all running around doing our own thing. I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that. Then you go away from this, you have a job here, you do about 20 jobs. And I can look back on my life now and think, my goodness, did I do that and do this? So I spent my life in a good way, but I can see where I've had my rough edges. I think we all have too. They're not gone yet. But I have to now observe that. And I found in one of these reject shops, they have these big photos, big canvas things of Buddha, and one of them is sitting there saying, don't think of the past, don't think of the future, just concentrate on now. Another one of those sayings that's easy to hear, but not easy to do, because we have to think about, well, we've got our human side, that's got to be kept in good condition. So you get to the point, okay, I did that, I'm sorry, and there's forgiveness is the Ho'oponopono prayer, some of you know, Leslie, you know that one. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. And I find that a comfort. And somewhere along the line, I did what they call centering prayer, which means you say a prayer, then a few minutes later, you forget you're on to something else. So what you do, you have a set of beads, or I use my fingers. I say, come back to one. And each time I try and make the prayer longer and get more into it. We have techniques to help us. Those who've been with us on the past, years ago, centuries ago, they've had all these little sayings they've left for us to make it easier for us. Makes it easier for us to read and understand, but to put into practice, we're all in the same boat, we all have to do it. We're eventually left to discover the nature of our own divinity. And another saying by Thich Nhat Hanh, enlightenment is when the wave realises it is the ocean, which I think is quite a good one. So we read about people coming and going in search of something that will bring them enlightenment, something outside themselves. It's given lofty names. It's called the Holy Grail, the pearl of great price, the gold at the end of the rainbow, or it could be found in a secret abbey in the Andes somewhere. There was a book called The Secret of the Andes. It was written by a New Zealand chap. He's now in the media, over there in the media, I think he still is, but he wrote a couple of books and he went on this journey. And he's not sure whether it was a dream or not. He went to this part of the valley, there he went into a dream, and he saw the abbey, knocked on the door and said, "Can I come in?" "No, you're not ready yet." So the door was shut and he woke up. Now, whether there was a protection around the abbey, because it's supposed to be a secret abbey, and I remember thinking to myself, I might go. This is about 25 years ago. So I went to the travel agent who just happened to present people opportunities for trips around the world. One of them was to the Andes. And I got chatting about him and I said, "Look, I've heard that there's a secret temple." He said, "Oh, look, none of that Shirley MacLaine nonsense." Shirley MacLaine was a big one for all this sort of stuff, and her books were great. I really enjoyed them at the time. And I said, "How do you know there's not?" He said, "Nonsense." He said, "We would know if it's there." I thought, I don't think so. But then I thought, well, I'll go for Machu Picchu anyway. But that travel part of my life disappeared. So is it mainly, I'm thinking now that it's inside me? Doesn't mean I don't want to travel, but as Emerson says, travel far and wide, but you take yourself with you. Okay. What I think now is to approach the state from somewhere where unity is culturally Christian, spiritually eclectic. That's one saying by Tom Shepherd, that used to do the Q&As in the Unity magazine. He's not with us anymore, I don't believe. And the magazine is now called Spirituality and Health. In Unity and New Thought, the Bible uses symbology to describe the evolution of consciousness from Adam, man of dust, to Jesus, man of Christ. And when we look at our body, I've done this one before, I think it was in the poem of Rumi. And he says, our bones are made of the rocks. Our blood is from the water, and our flesh is the vegetation. And it is. Everything in the physical world has a use-by date. Even us. And I just think to myself, well, okay, that's why it's vital to get what we can out of this wonderful time we've got here with, as I said, its blessings and challenges. Some make it early, some don't. But that's not the end of it. The Christian church don't talk about reincarnation. But it's there in the Bible. It slipped in. I'm not going to talk about them now. There's about 3 or 4 profound ones that the council at the time, 320 something, decided that we're not going to present that to people. But thank goodness, I believe, we have a second chance, a third chance. It's going to be as long as it takes, because we are born divine and we'll be knocked around until we realise that. I use the word knocked around because after a while life can get a little bit rocky. Thank you, Beverly. So, in the New Testament, we read the story of Jesus. He was a babe in the manger, and the idea that the Christ nature had been given birth, nurtured by Mary and Joseph, a balance of the intellect and intuition, an idea that grew. We don't hear much about Joseph, Jesus' biological father, if I'm allowed to say that. But he was a balance of the masculine and feminine. I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about energies. He had the intellect, but he also had the other awareness that could dream and get enlightenment and go inside. And to balance that out, intellect and intuition. And he knew that he had to take the child Jesus out of Bethlehem and into Egypt, away from the problems of Herod. We next read of Jesus in the temple in Jerusalem, where he had slipped away from his parents. Now that would have been terrible for them, because only about 12. But he was in the temple speaking to the rabbis and priests. And it's interesting to think that was one of the priests Hillel, the famous Hillel, who talked about all you need to know about spirituality is the golden rule, which is why I played that song today. But that's a good place to start. Then he disappears. Some say he went to India. Whether he did or didn't, I don't know, but there's books about it. And the Silk Trail was well and truly in action then, so it would have been quite feasible for him to go there. The seed had been sown in good soil and in full bloom as the Christ. And in that state of consciousness, he says, I and my Father are one. And at the end, in full consciousness, when the worldly ego gave one last temptation, he states, not my will, but thy will be done. And then after that, into thy hands I commend my spirit. The ego had been put in service to the spirit. So as we can see, God bless us all as we go together on this. And we all pray for peace. A little question came to me this morning. It was, what if all of a sudden we all became enlightened at once? All going around like Jesus, bless you, all this sort of stuff. We may not need Mother Earth. But we need a school. That's what this is. It's a mystery school of Mother Earth, where we come here to do this, and we know once we get to a certain point that we're on the right track regardless. And those who are more enlightened than others, that is their challenge to meant for those who are coming through. Challenge on both sides. But what we need now, not individual enlightenment, as someone said, I forget where it was now, we need more of a collective environment and a collective enlightenment. As Jesus said, where two or more are gathered together in my name, there shall I be also. And to those who worry about the future, Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled. I go and prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go and prepare a place for you. And when it's prepared, I will come for you. In the meantime, I leave you with the Comforter. That is our divinity. So this story is about our journey. The same journey we take as we navigate the ups and downs of this physical world of opposites and try to live on that narrow way. The middle way, living from the Christ perspective. What a journey. Welcome aboard, everyone.